What up? What up? What up? Yo, El Lobo, what's going on? Don't this side parrot? No, no, I don't need no parrot. I don't have no parrot. Don't want a parrot. Don't need that. All I got is a Chihuahua. And my Chihuahua, thank God, is a quiet ass Chihuahua, cause otherwise I throw that dog out the door. Yeah, I'm not that big on pets. Like I like them, but from a distance. I don't need them in my house. I need my peace and quiet. But on another note, though, I think today was just one boring ass day. I'm not even gonna front with you guys. Today was definitely, as much as I was pretty much excited about today, right? You probably heard me in my voice yesterday. I'm like, today's gonna be a great day. We're gonna see a massive move. Guess what we got? We got one leg up, and it just felt like just a shit show for the rest of the day. So that was pretty much no, just finding two plays this morning. I think was just the biggest thing for me. I didn't stay too much into the market. You heard me earlier on live. I also tweeted out for everyone else that was following me on Twitter. I literally found two plays. I've been on Amazon for the past what I think since the beginning of the week more so that I've been pretty much tracking Amazon. That was one. It ended up being a beautiful play out for today. We got about a $3 pop. I think it moved from about 108 up to about 111 and change at the height of the day. So that was just a beautiful play. The other one that kind of caught my attention, and I was calling out on Avery about that one to see if he had caught it before me, was a beautiful textbook flag on Neil on the daily, which I will see if I get to real quick. But that was a beautiful one as well. So I am holding a little bit of a swing position in Neil. Nothing crazy, nothing that I'm going to be losing sleep over if we do end up going red again tomorrow, but the flag there was just too noticeable. I think it was just worth the swing. And of course, being that it's usually cheaper options, it's not something as volatile as saying holding a Tesla position overnight. Yeah, there's nothing I'm gonna sweat at about overnight. All right. Renee, what's going on? Does he like Taco Bell? My dog likes everything. If you give him any kind of food, he'll take it. That's it. Well, she will take it. It's a her. So yeah, my dog is a fat ass. For a Chihuahua, she looks like a fat ass. I'm gonna just say that. But other than that, getting back on topic real quick, so I can kind of just give you guys a little bit of my thought process, and I'll see if any charts you guys want to go through real quick. But getting a quick look at S&P futures here real quick. What I basically took away today is that you saw I had this little rising wedge kind of action going on. If you zoom it out to like the 4 hour or so, you can make a case that it looks like a bear flag, and everyone expected us to pretty much drop today. I don't think there was anyone that expected the CPI data to pretty much come in less than what it was from May, and I don't necessarily think that a lot of people actually thought that we would necessarily pop out of the CPI data today, like we ended up having more so of a recovery in that fashion that we did. So everyone was pretty much bearish. I think everyone leaned that direction going into the data, and hopefully most of you did not press into that drop that we had right at the open, because I'm sure a lot of you probably got squeezed out or you hit your stop loss. All right. But as you see right now, you see you had the nice little leg down. You broke what was your trendline support. As you see, if I kind of zoom in just a bit, and actually I should zoom in on my chart itself. Now you can potentially see you had the nice little wedge. You had the beautiful trendline support going into the data. You cracked that trendline support this morning off of that data. You and actually I saw on Twitter, I think some actual traders were calling out. Oh, I bet there was a lot of people that tweeted out once you saw that little pop. And actually, you do see that pop after that data came out. You saw the pop, and then you saw everything just flush. So a lot of traders were pretty much getting a little bit too bullish, a little too early. Did I expect us to necessarily go up? I still am bullish potentially. I still think that we have more upside. And which what I'm getting to is that actually you see we cracked that trend line. I was pretty much stating that I was pretty much remaining bullish to neutral as long as we held 37.44 on future, because as you see for the past few days going basically back towards the middle of last month, you see that 34 level, which I will highlight in a different color actually so you see it brighter. If you see this orange line that I have, you can tell how much in just the past month, basically, you've smacked that 37.44 level, and either you've gotten a full-on breakdown, or you multiple times have actually acted as support level, and you saw the reversal. So that's what I was anticipating, is to likely smack that 37.44, see if we get the dead cat retest that trendline support as a resistance. But instead, we were able to reclaim that prior trendline support, and we are back inside of the wedge. So what this tells me is, as long as we particularly hold this wedge, if we can hold it somehow here overnight around this 3,800 level, as you see, we're kind of peaking here after hours. If we can potentially hold this 38 level and we can potentially start to make what I want to say is a higher low going into tomorrow, I can see it starting to pretty much curl right back up as we saw a lot of these tech names actually start to go green today. So I think we can build a base here as long as we particularly hold right around this 3,800 level on S&P. Otherwise, if we start to retrace back down, that 3744 still remains as my downside target for a heavy and major support level. If we break that 3744, I think everything is off the table. Just going into pretty much your rough support levels that you're watching. Below 3744, you're keeping an eye on 3724. Below that, the next level I had ideally was 3708, and then we can start talking about the low that we pretty much put in from June 17th, right around this 3600, mid 3600s, you could say, high 3600s. Be exact, that low is sitting 3671. All right. So otherwise, then again, though, I think this 3,800 needs to hold. I'm pretty much ideally looking for that to hold tomorrow, and then we could potentially have a solid day tomorrow, trying to put in a higher low and curl out of this to the back to the upside. All right. But not being biased in any way or sort of form, if we end up breaking down, I mean, I will happily pay puts under 37.44, but I think it's going to be a close call to say if we end up breaking this trendline support yet again that we just reclaimed today, it's going to be a tight window if you try to pretty much play what would be basically a quarter of this. Say tomorrow morning you open up around, say, under 37.70 for whatever reason. From 37.70 to that major support of 37.44, I don't feel that's ideal risk reward. I would rather break that crucial support level, that 37.44, and then go into puts more so. Because then I know that's going to be a very pivotal level that we smacked multiple times, and you're going to see an extended move once you do break that support. So that's just pretty much my mindset right now. But I think this is more so a little bit of your chop area. If we do continue to pretty much stay below that trendline support tomorrow, I think this is a chop fest pretty much between that 37.44 and right around this 3,800. We could chop there tomorrow, pretty much all day tomorrow. So I would hope it's not another shit show like we saw today in terms of just like moving like a snail. I would hope that we get a better price action tomorrow. But just be aware that that 37.44 to 3,800 range right there, that's likely going to end up being a chop fest, and most of your premiums are going to end up getting eaten. All right, so that's just something to keep in mind. I think you either play north of 3,800 on S&P feuds, or you play below 37.44, and hopefully we get a bigger range to play. All right. Outside of that, what else did I want to talk about real quick? I think I was gonna mention about Neo, and I pretty much just delete everything so I can kind of just chart it out for you guys, give you a little bit of a layout of what I was watching potentially. And I think someone had me chart Neo not that long ago. I think Chris, those of you that are familiar with him, he was actually in the chat here as well. The last time I ended up looking at Neo, and it was actually surprisingly still in a defined downtrend. And that's usually something that I usually say a lot. If a stock is in a defined downtrend, I'm particularly not looking to play it more so. And I'm actually not going to use that trend line. I'll use a different one. And so that's pretty much one thing that the last time I did look at it, it was basically in a defined uh, downtrend resistance. So as I pretty much just give you just a little bit of a gist, the ideal level that I'm watching for the bigger overall breakout here off of just looking at the 4 hour, I want to see this get over a breakout here over to 25 half. That's where I think the bigger breakout is. But as I chart this little small little wedge that you have, that's basically, you could call it a flag more so. It's just a beautiful textbook flag. I think once this ends up particularly breaking, it's just going to be a full-on overshoot. 22.18 was my resistance roughly that I was watching here, likely going into tomorrow. That's going to be my short-term resistance. But above that, you do have some resistance right around this 24 flat. And then that puts me right into where I'm looking at for the bigger breakout above 25 half. So this is just a beautiful one. You see you basically broke the larger, this, I want to say smaller degree rather, smaller degree little downtrend that you have down here, and that's what actually made me get more of a confidence level in terms of this. You actually have a downtrend break here off of this 4 hour and a textbook flag. So if I'm playing this how I normally would play everything else, if I see this break below 19 half tomorrow, That's likely going to end up being my stop loss, my stop out, if you want to say. So 19 and a half overall needs to hold. And I think as long as that 19 and a half holds, I think we should see continuation to the upside here. As we did have a nice intraday pop out of this one, I think we should get some more fluidity to the upside here tomorrow. And I'm actually hoping that we have a nice little green day tomorrow as well to pretty much coincide with the breakout that I'm expecting. All right. But again, I'm not holding anything in position wise that I'm gonna lose sleep over. It's just I'm glad it's actually something that's relatively cheap in terms of premium, and it's nothing like a Tesla per se. All right. Lobo, can I cover the biotech ETF LABU? I have not looked at that in just a minute. I know that I believe it was on the end of last week, if not on Monday. I think I was talking about healthcare actually being a strong sector. But pretty much looking at this, I do see that you got a nice little curl up. We actually did hold up today for the most part in terms of that. You could make the case for a little bit of a double bottom type of action here. You put in your first bottom May 12th. You put in your second bottom in terms of equal range here. June 17th, you put in that second bottom in which now you start to push to where your prior resistance is as you get your right leg to the upside. So if I'm looking at that, you basically smacked right into some pretty tough resistance there. Off of this one, as you try to retrace back to the upside, if you're looking for that big move out Lobo, which I would assume you're looking for the bigger breakout more so, you're looking for this to pretty much cross over this $10 mark ideally. That's basically the big level that you're watching. You cross over that $10 mark, then we can start to pretty much look at retesting what was a prior low here, and also a little bit of a confluence level of your last breakdown here, this entire leg that you had, your breakdown. But essentially, you're gonna end up making a move up towards 1180. So over $10, you look at 1180. I do like the little retest that you got here as well. This is something that's pretty solid, is that I have to say. Um, on the move here. So you had the nice little leg to the upside. You basically have equal length from your left shoulder, you could say, to your right shoulder. And you had the nice little retest on this wick to the downside here. And then before you pop right back up. So I do like this chart quite a bit, actually, Lobo. This is a beautiful one. I want to say you could probably get in early. I mean, just given the fact of how cheap the stock is itself, I'm pretty sure the premiums are also relatively cheap. If I had to say what level I would probably get in early, it would be right around 95.59. If you can break 99.59, then I'd say you probably can get a little bit of an earlier entry if you're not in it yet. And then you can just take that right over that $10 mark, and then you take that move up to 1180. All right. You do have a tiny little gap fill here, by the way. I mean, I should just point that out. It's a tiny gap fill, and I mean tiny, so I'm not even gonna highlight it itself. But you have a tiny gap fill here over the 1401. So if you get the break here, you get the move to 1180. I would probably leave runners there at that point, and then intentionally towards that gap fill, you can get that move. All right. 1050 calls for next week that are almost green. I do like that play a lot. The best thing that you actually said about that statement is that you were wise enough to pretty much get next week expiration. That was the smartest move on your part because, especially being that this is OPEX week, you're gonna end up likely getting some crazy price action, especially on Friday if you do have this week expiration. So just be cautious about that part. But very mindful on your end of getting the time on that expiration for yourself. All right. Outside of that, let's see what else I can point to. Just give you some general ideas. Boeing was one that's still on my radar. I was pretty much still watching this one in terms of that price action. Just a beautiful move that we had yesterday. I was pretty much telling you guys that I kind of missed a little bit of that move yesterday. I knew it was going to pop. That 142 half was roughly that resistance that it's been smacking its head on for the past few days. And you had the beautiful breakout there on this one. So I am going to keep watching this one. I think I had this resistance on. All right, yeah, never mind. I'll just move it up. So you basically ended up getting, as you see, you had the beautiful resistance dating back to June 8th here of last month, potentially. That 142, 142.21, you could say roughly, was that resistance that you continue to smack your head on consistently. And you had the beautiful little consolidation here. You can see the nice little box if I draw it out. That is literally what you call consolidation right there. That little box that I just highlighted, that is literally what you consider consolidation until you end up breaking either north or south. And that's pretty much the hard part about that is that you have to wait until you get the move. whether it be north or south, because when you get those consolidations, you can break north or south. There's no given direction like usually how patterns itself are usually bullish or bearish. Like saying a rising wedge is typically bearish. No, when you usually get consolidation just high and tight, it can either break north or south. All right. But you had the beautiful break over that 142 half. You had the nice little retest this morning. That's what I was actually hoping I would have caught this morning. I was looking at it more so on the 5 minute. I should have zoomed out here on the hourly chart, and I would have caught that little dip entry at that 142 low. But I did miss that one. But that was a beautiful retest that you basically got after a breakout. And so I'm going to watch for continuation above. And once we end up getting a break here over 146 half, you'll be in that gap fill and you should see continuation to break yesterday's high. All right. So that's going to be a beautiful one. Just keep in mind, we may end up getting another entry here at this 142 half. If we end up opening red tomorrow for whatever reason, you could potentially likely end up seeing this retest that 142 half. And I'm going to look to see if we can pivot off of that to basically create what's already been a higher low on this dip. All right. So that's one I'm going to probably keep a very keen eye on going into tomorrow. The other thing that kind of stood out to me was also the semis. If I actually point out to the semis, I think I only have like four names in here. Yeah. Looking at AMD, that was just a beautiful one in terms of the price action that had. I know that AMD has not been, I want to say, friendly for the past few days. As you see, the pretty much the downtrend that we've had basically since the past 5 days, more so or less. It has not been pretty, but that was a beautiful little downtrend break that you got today. That was literally just textbook in terms of that downtrend break. So I'm gonna watch for this one. Let's see if we can hold this 76 half. If we can hold 76 half on the retest of this downtrend break, I think that's where you potentially look to see if you can go long. Obviously, looking at the broader market in that aspect as well. But 76 half should be that retest of this downtrend break, and then we should likely see another leg up higher here as earnings pretty much approach. All right, so that's something that, as you see, earnings are pretty much the 26th here of July. So I would expect us to pretty much ramp up here. I probably get even to the mid 80s to high 80s here when it's all said and done by their earnings. But key level to pretty much again keep in mind 76 half. Let's see if we get the retest and we get the strong reversal like we had the breakout today. So I'm going to keep an eye on that one. Full on breakout though that I'm watching here would be over 79.30. That's also the completion of the gap fill here as well. So over 79.30, I think that's where you get a beautiful move and we should be able to take this up towards 82. All right, so that's one I'm going to keep an eye on, but it was a good sign to keep seeing the semis actually relatively green today, in which they're two leaders, AMD and Nvidia. And speaking of Nvidia, this is just another butte that I've been keeping an eye on. Probably get out to the 2 hour here, but you can see you have the nice little descending channeling action here. You only dip below the support trend line here. Was it's about 2 days, 2 3 days, but more so that actually has acted as a resistance to support, and that's what ends up making up that support trend line. So I'm going to look for a move here. We get a move over 150, 155 here tomorrow. Over 155, you basically break what has been I want to say about a month long downtrend resistance. So over 155, let's see if we get that move over that, and then we can start talking about a move up towards 163, which will be your next resistance level, your next major resistance level for that matter. All right. So I'll keep an eye on that one. Outside of that, I know that we also do have banks coming up tomorrow. I believe Tom is also posting out just some kind of general ideas in terms of the past earnings, the expected moves on them, also his actual chart that he's actually charted out multiple banks. I believe that's being posted somewhere on social media. I believe it might be on his Twitter account. I could be wrong, don't quote me. But that's something that might be very insightful for all of you to pretty much take a look at. But just pretty much just a glance at this. You do have a nice little falling wedge in terms of JPM. This is one that I've been pretty much keeping an eye on relatively. We'll see if we get a nice little pop. Do I expect it to hold in terms of getting continuation? I think the banks are relatively going to be under quite a lot of stress here after their earnings. I don't expect too much. You could make a case that you're kind of bear flagging here off of this price action. If I kind of just draw this little bear flag that you have going on here, if I draw this, drop it in green here, you could pretty much make a case for a little bit of a bear flag type formation here inside of this falling wedge. So not very convincing. If I were to say in terms of upside, if you were maybe get some kind of earnings run up, I need to see this actually get over the entire gap fill here for me to feel safe about getting an earnings run up potentially. Over 112.75, then we can start talking about a move up towards the resistance here of this 114 half. But if you can't break north of that 112, that 113 basically, then I don't think that 114 half is going to be in play to potentially break the downtrend resistance. All right. So that's what I'll keep an eye on as well. Another name was pretty much Goldman Sachs. This is another one I've been watching. You have a nice little wedge type of action here going on. You've been wicking this downtrend support level pretty much twice already, as you saw. You had the nice little breakdown today, but you had the snapback. That was the beautiful part about that. So you are still within the wedge, pretty much very well defined. You get a break here over 292. I think that's a beautiful slingshot up towards 266, towards that resistance level of this wedge. So me personally, I favor Goldman Sachs over all the banks in terms of playing any kind of run up. Why do I say that? Is because Goldman Sachs is the one that actually has earnings next week rather than this week, and you could take advantage pretty much of the premium not being as jacked up. So I do like Goldman Sachs preferably. Again, if you get a move over 292, I think you can get even a beautiful move here, being safe towards 296. But I do have a hard resistance level sitting at 302 high. I want to say, which is basically up towards your gap fill, 302.71 if you want to be exact for the completion of gap fill. All right. So that's another one that I'll pretty much keep an eye on. Outside of that, I think you could probably continue to watch Amazon for continuation. That was just a beautiful breakout that you had out of Amazon today. If I kind of get into the smaller dynamics of the chart here, the 15-minute, you see that you had the beautiful little descending channel action. You ended up getting a little bit of an inverted head and shoulder type of action. Just noticing that we ended up pretty much getting a strong bounce back after that, wicking that downtrend support level. Once I saw it start to hold this 108 level, which has basically been the halfway back of this entire channel action, once I saw that 108 hold, that was literally just my sign that this was going to pop right into that resistance. I mentioned a live 110 was that resistance, and everything that pretty much gave you after that was a little bit of a gift, but you did have that resistance sitting right around that 112 spot is what I was particularly watching. We just pretty much kind of closed just shy of it for the high of the day. But that was a beautiful move, a beautiful consolidation. I want to also highlight here. This is another way of pretty much saying that we can break north or south here tomorrow. But this is another beautiful consolidation that you had for pretty much most of the day on Amazon. So I'm going to watch to see if we can pop this high that we have over 112. I'm looking at that gap fill that's pretty much sitting up to be completed up towards 115. So that'll be roughly about another $3 upside if you can get a move over 112. And that'll be another one in which I will happily take that tomorrow because the $3 move on Amazon will literally make my day and I'll probably walk away from the computer. So that's another one I'll keep an eye on. Let's see if we get continuation on this one, and hopefully the market pretty much cooperates and we can get some beautiful movement out of that. One thing to pretty much also highlight, I know that pretty much energy, oil, did not have relatively a strong day. Pretty much inflation's just impacted that more so from a sentiment standpoint, and that's why we saw energy, oil start to roll over today. So keep an eye again, how I mentioned about the rotation today. Today you pretty much saw a lot of money pretty much rotated into tech. That was pretty much what I noticed. Seeing a lot of those names go red to green. But tomorrow, let's see pretty much if we get a snapback out of energy to oil. Otherwise, if energy and oil can't rally, then let's pretty much look to see how the banks do in terms of earnings run up. And then, of course, tech is always on watch. So that's just looking at different rotations, energy, oil, vice versa, banks, and then tech also. So just keep an eye on that tomorrow. Other than that, I will pretty much stop my rambling on and we'll conclude here for today's session. But